Bhagavad Gita is titled Dhyana Yoga, and also known as Ashtanga Yoga. So, last couple of classes we had a little bit of I guess an introductory discussion. We had a discussion on what is Paramatma, the nature of Paramatma. We also had discussion on what exactly is Ashtanga Yoga. Krishna describes it and Prabhupada describes it over several verses. So we kind of distilled the description and just looked at what exactly is Ashtanga Yoga, what are the 8 stages of the yoga. Does anybody remember the 8 stages of the Ashtanga Yoga? What's the first 2 stages? Yam and Niyam. So Yam and Niyam, these are the prohibitions and the injunctions. Then what are the next 2 stages? Asana and Pranayama. So Asana is basically the sitting postures, which is also known as Hatha Yoga, and various kind of exercises that are done to increase one's the body's ability to tolerate physical discomfort. And you can actually sit here if you want. Yeah, Shakulna, you can sit here. That's okay. There's place over here. Pyali, there's place for you also.
I'll come and just ask.
Okay. So we had Hatha Yoga or Asana, and then Pranayama. Pranayama is breathing exercises, pran, that extend one's longevity. So these are the first 4 stages, and the next 4 stages are what's the 4th stage? Samadhi is the 8th stage. After that is Pratyahara. So Pratyahara is turning one's attention from the external to the internal. And then there is Dharana. Dharana is establishing a conception for where your internal meditation will go. And then the final 2 stages are Dhyana and Samadhi, which is stages of increased meditation. Samadhi is being completely absorbed in the meditation of the object. And we also discussed that Krishna put it over here for various reasons. Even though Ashtanga Yoga is not really recommended in this age of Kali, because it is very difficult to do. It takes several thousands and thousands of years for one to even cross the initial stages of Yam, Niyam, Asana and Pranayama, and the final stages take much longer time. In the scriptures we have examples of sages like Vishwamitra, Durvasha Rishi, who meditated for 50,000 years, 60,000 years. Vishwamitra meditated for several thousand years before they were able to achieve some kind of perfection. So in this particular age, it's not recommended to. You want to put the book away. So in this particular age, it is not really recommended, but Krishna puts it because it's a valid process. It is one of the valid bona fide ways to achieve spiritual advancement, and also in order to address. If he did not put it, then people would ask, what about Ashtanga Yoga? What about the yogis we reach in the scriptures? So that's why Krishna has put it over here. So we'll start with the first verse. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "One who is unattached to the fruits of his work, and he works as he is obligated, is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, nor he who lights no fire and performs no duty." So the initial verses, Krishna talks about what is the prerequisites for one who is qualified to take to the process of Ashtanga Yoga. So this verse talks about the fact that the person is detached He is detached from the fruits of the activity and is detached from the activity. But Krishna makes the point over here that he says that and who works as he is obligated. So there are in the Manusmriti it is described that there are 5 kinds of karma, 5 kinds of activities that are done. So the first is nitya karma. So nitya karma is also known as sustenance activities. So these are activities that one does just to survive, to eat food, drink, sleep, shelter, protection from the elements. So this is nitya karma. The second is naimittik karma. So naimittik karma are occasional activities that one is obligated to do. So they are like marriage, or a birth of a child, or celebrating the Upanayan, the sacred thread ceremony. So there are several activities that are not done on a routine basis, but they are done depending on one's particular varna and ashram. So they are called naimittik karma. The third kind of karma is called kamya karma. So these are activities that one does for kam. Kam is because of desires. So one wants to be rich, one wants to be famous, one wants to be powerful. So for that there are activities that a person may do in order to satisfy their kam, their desires. The fourth kind of activities is known as nishidh karma. So nishidh karma is activities that are forbidden to do. So killing somebody without reason, stealing, doing sinful activities. So these are nishidh karma. And the fifth is called praishchit karma. So these are activities that people do in order to atone for past or present sinful activities. So people sometimes they will follow fasts. They will fast on Monday or Thursday, or they will take a vow, that some kind of a vow, whether it is fasting is popular, but there are different vows that people take. Sometimes they say that I'll get up early in the morning and take a cold water bath, or sometimes they will say that I will only eat after I give in charity to so many people. So they'll take different kinds of vows, and they are praishchit. So the symptom of what is the symptom of past sinful activities is that when one is going through grief. So grief is a symptom of past sinful. So how does sin actually come and manifest in your life? It creates an environment through which you experience various kinds of grief. So people may be sad because they don't have a job, or they don't have money, or their children may be rascals. So there are different causes of grief, and a lot of time when you go to especially to purohits, to pandits who are more into karmakant, so they will recommend some kind of a praishchit, that because this is a symptom of your past sinful activities, then there are two ways that the effects of sinful activities can be mitigated. One is by simply letting them take their course. So because of sinful activities, there are different kind of trials and tribulations that you may be faced to, and you just let them take their course, and you know that the sins are being expunged. So that is one way. The second is by, instead of waiting for those activities to manifest, the reactions to those activities to manifest, you voluntarily take on some kind of suffering. So instead of having the suffering come to you at its own term, you let it come to you at your term. So by giving your body different kinds of suffering, you're voluntarily atoning for activities that would have given you suffering later on. So here Krishna says that the person is doing only what is known as nitya karma. So of all the five kinds of activities, he is only doing activities that are required for sustenance. He is not doing the other four kinds of activities. And that's where Krishna makes the point that not one who lights no fire and performs no duty. So the idea is that one should not become a yogi to become a parasite on the society. Let's say that I am a yogi, so give me food, I am a yogi, so make a hut for me or give me money. The yogi will do whatever activity is needed, bare minimum, sustenance. But they will do it on their own. Next verse. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So Krishna is emphasizing two things over here. One is that he is reiterating the concept of being detached, reiterating the concept of renunciation, but now he is complementing it, and he said that this renunciation should be a part of yoga. So along with this renunciation, so what does yoga mean? What is the meaning of yoga? To connect, right? So renunciation means to disconnect. So Krishna is making the point that this disconnecting should come along with connecting. The renunciation should come along with yoga. So as one becomes more and more disconnected from the material conception, he needs to get more and more connected to the spiritual conception. That, Krishna says, is the real definition of yoga. That is the conception that one should anchor themselves in when they begin the process of Astanga Yoga. Next verse. For one who is a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. So we had discussed that there were 8 stages in the yoga. The first 4 stages are considered to be neophyte, to be early stages. And a person who is at that stage is known as yoga rurukshu. Then the final 4 stages, the person is advanced, and a person at this stage is considered to be yoga rudha. So yoga rurukshu and yoga rudha. So in the earlier 4 stages, work is the means, because the person is, so as we know, when the person is at yam, niyam, asana and pranayam, there's a lot of activities that the person is doing. Person is doing various kinds of hatha yoga practices, breathing exercises. The person is following the rules and regulations of yam and niyam. So the work is the means for what? It's the mean for developing material detachment. And in the final 4 stages, which is when the person becomes more focused on the inside. So this is the stage of pratyahara, dharana, dhyana and samadhi. Then because the person is already elevated in consciousness, the person does not have to work anymore. So many times when we look at or when we picturize yogis in our mind, we actually picturize yogis in this advanced stages, that they're sitting in isolation, they're sitting by themselves, their eyes are closed and their mind is completely focused. So these are so externally they are not doing any work, they're just sitting there meditating. But in order to reach that stage, they have gone through the earlier 4 stages of yoga. So the first 4 stages of yoga give material detachment. The final 4 stages of yoga give spiritual attachment. So that's why Krishna right away said in the beginning that one should only practice the process of detachment by understanding the corresponding process of attachment. fourth verse. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when he has renounced all material desires. He neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So this is the symptom of one at yoga rudha, at an elevated platform, where, so one might say that how come a person at an elevated stage does not require to work anymore? Krishna says because of this reason, that by this time the person has already renounced all desires from inside, not externally, that he does not even feel the need for any kinds of material engagement. So the first four verses are basically the kind of the prerequisite verse. You see one theme that is coming over and over again, which is detachment. Krishna is saying that in order to become really serious about the process of Ashtanga Yoga, one must be detached from the fruits of your activities, one must be detached from the desire to enjoy. So any questions, comments at this point? Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I was just wondering, like when you said in text 3, first you make, away, pull out from the detachment, then you go for the spiritualism. Right? So are we doing that?
So when we take to the process of making advancement, so generally what we get is we get two kinds of instructions. So there are instructions that says do this, and there are instructions that say don't do this. Like for us, we get at the time of initiation two category of instruction. One is chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna every day. That is spiritual attachment. And the second is at the four regulative principles: don't eat meat, don't drink liquor, don't gamble, and don't have illicit sex. So these are vikarmas. So these are the activities that will basically tie us more and more into the material world. So this is back in the early 1900s. Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had sent one of his disciples to London to preach over there, Bhakti Sarang Maharaj. And he was talking to a member of the Parliament of Britain, Lord Ronald Shea. He was the Marquis of Zetland. So he was before that a governor in Bengal. So he had some understanding of what was going on. So he had invited him, that sadhu has come from India, and he said that I want to be a Brahmin. How can you make me a Brahmin? And so he said it's very simple, just follow these four regulative principles. And then Lord Ronald Shea started laughing. He said, if I follow these principles, I have no life after that. So the understanding is that, of course you have a life, but the conception of one's life of enjoyment becomes very different. That you be careful with what you eat, with what you drink, how you conduct yourself, kind of relationships that you have. So there is a lot of nished, there is a lot of prohibitions that automatically helps us develop detachment. And then when we chant, it helps us develop spiritual attachments. So we see both of them going hand in hand. Yeah, helps. Anything else? Okay. So beginning from the fifth verse, Krishna speaks a little bit about what would practically help a person who is following the process of Ashtanga Yoga. This is verse 5. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So one of the biggest factors that can help or become an obstacle in the practice of Astan Yoga is the mind. So Krishna puts it right up front, that unless you are able to control your mind, you will not be able to make any progress. And if you control your mind, the mind is your friend. If you're not able to control your mind, the mind is your enemy. And there are many analogies that are given, like the mind are the horses, and they're carrying one. And if one has a strong rein on the mind, then the horses are the senses, and the mind is the rein. So if you have a weak mind, then the horses will take you wherever you want. If the rein is weak, then the horses will take you where they want. So if your mind is weak, then you will follow your senses. And the nature of senses are that, so the senses by nature are in the mode of ignorance. They are tamas guna. So the senses in themselves will take you wherever they see there is the maximum scope of material attachment, material enjoyment. And we experience that empirically so many times, right? You get up in the Monday morning, your senses are saying that don't get up, just go to sleep. There's no need to go to work. And then your mind says that, so you have control, like that, I may lose my job, or my boss might get upset at me. So you have some ability to control the senses. And in a more subtle way, the senses are constantly driving us. So because the process of Astan Yoga requires a lot of activities that take shelter of the mind, Krishna is right away saying that be careful of your mind. Next verse. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of the friends. But for one who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy. And we have all experienced this ourselves, that we may experience the same situation differently based on the state of our mind. That I had this experience. This was not really personally, but about 4 years ago. At World Bank, it's a very kind of a safe environment. They rarely let people go. But 4 years ago, there were some management changes, and they came in, and the new CIO came in, and she fired a bunch of people. And these people were shocked because, once you get in the bank, then you start preparing for your retirement, that, this is what I'll do at the time of retirement. IMF is the same. You start, there's a retirement calculator, you plug in your year and all that. It will tell you what your pension is going to be. And then, these guys were like, what happened? What hit us? They came in, and Friday, the director called them in and said that, they got a good package, but they said, you're no longer needed. And I was talking to two people, and I saw that how differently they were reacting to it. Both of them were in the same situation, and one was like, okay, I lost a job, I didn't expect it. And the second person was so agitated that, he was cursing everybody. This bank will fail, this whole organization will fail, this VP will get fired, and, and this will happen, and that will happen. And I was just thinking about it. It's just the nature of the mind, that both of them were in the same situation, and one of them was, okay, what has happened, let me move on. And the other one just could not get out of it. So it's the nature of the mind. If it is uncontrolled, it's your biggest enemy. It will drive you down to the mode of ignorance. So the mode of ignorance is characterized by constant lamentation. That one keeps lamenting on and on and on and on. That's the nature of the mode of ignorance. Of the four varnas, the Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, the characteristics of so what does Shudra mean? Shudra the meaning of Shudra in Sanskrit is one who laments continuously. So the nature of Shudra is that everything is that, the metro is slow today. I do that all the time. Sometimes thinking I should stop being a Shudra. I go take the red line and I say, oh my God, the red line is late, or I'm sitting in the train, I have a meeting to attend, and and then this person, that whoever it is, I guess the driver, they're saying in a very polite and in a very courteous way, the train is going to be held you for 5 minutes, and they keep saying that every 5 minutes, and I'm like, my God, what's happening over here? And then I say, stop being a Shudra. So it's the nature of the Shudra that they lament constantly. Why? Because the nature of the mind. That the mind is not able to, instead of the mind giving them shelter, the mind is actually agitating them. So Krishna is basically making this point to Arjun that if you have to perform Astanga Yoga, then know your mind. Know the capabilities of your mind. It can be your biggest friend when it is controlled. And it can be your biggest enemy if you're not able to control it. And this actually will be one of the first questions that Arjun will ask in this chapter, because it is so key to not only Astanga Yoga, but to our very existence. So Arjun will ask for further clarifications on this. Yeah.
So over here it says you should control your mind to be able to, elevate yourself. But how to do that? That is not referred to over here, right?
It's not referred here, but so what Krishna generally does is that he puts in a goal that this is important, and then he does the how-to part of it. So he doesn't speak too much about it, but he does speak a little bit about what would be the process to control the mind. Anything else? Parikshit, for you?
Just a comment that both of these verses, they really talk about how powerful the mind is.
Mm-hmm.
So at what level it seems scary how powerful the mind is. It can take you towards more ignorance. But at the same time, Krishna assures us that you still have a choice how you use your mind. You still have the free will. So mind is extremely powerful, but you can still control it.
Right. And then you can use the power of the mind to your advantage. So it is powerful either way. It's a powerful enemy and a powerful friend, depending on how you interact with it. But that's a good point. Krishna is trying to emphasize to Arjun that don't mess with your mind.
Right. I saw a very similar quote in a picture on the internet a few days ago, and the picture was basically a person sitting right next to a lion.
Mm-hmm.
And the lion was compared to the mind. You better befriend this thing.
Right,
otherwise it's really dangerous.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Actually, mind is very difficult to control. Sometimes it happens from so many factors, and it hits the mind in that way. So that time, people are helpless to control,
It is, and that's the theme that Krishna is building. That in order to do Astanga Yoga, you need to control your mind. In order to control your mind, there's a lot of activities that you have to perform before that. You should have
Sometimes we fail also.
Sometimes you fail also. Yeah, Arjun will ask this question, that what if I fail in controlling my mind? And then Krishna says, I don't want to give away Krishna's thunder, so but this is a question that even Arjun asks, that what happens if you fail to control your mind? True?
With both of us, 5 and 6, Prabhu, like it is mentioned that mind is friend and enemy as well. And in verse 5 it is mentioned that delivers himself with the help of his mind. So most of the times we try to control, but making friend meaning?
So making friend meaning that, take like a practical example, that let's assume you have to do some spiritual activity, right?
Can you repeat his question?
Okay, sorry. So question was that what does making friends with the mind mean, right? So if you look at a practical example, that let's assume you have to get up in the morning and chant, right? And an uncontrolled mind will say don't chant, but a controlled mind will say chant, right? So the same mind that could be a big obstacle is now becoming a big catalyst, over there. And the difference between the two is how do you deal with your mind. And the whole process of spirituality, at least in the initial stages, is either directly or indirectly learning to control your mind. Yeah. Okay.
Most of the times we use our intelligence to say that chanting helps you, so we chant like that. So, but eventually our mind should say that. Right?
Okay. Anything else? Good. So we were at
6 verses.
So we were at 6. So let's go to verse 7. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So Arjuna may ask that what is the symptom of one who has controlled the mind? So Krishna, in the next set of verses, he talks about various symptoms, and generally speaking, depending on the level of control of the mind, the symptoms go from more gross to subtle. So at a gross level, it is that you have tolerance to physical trials and tribulations, like heat and cold. It's okay. Don't get too agitated if it is something palatable or impalatable. So these are more to do with the 5 gross senses. So that is the basic level of mind control. Prabhupada gives the example of how a Brahman will take a bath in a cold day, even though the water is cold, because understands the importance of taking a bath in the morning. Of course, now there is hot water showers, etc. But this example comes from the scriptures, that how a housewife will cook in the kitchen in the summer, even though it is hot. Or a Brahman will take a bath in the early morning, even though it's cold. So this is the basic level of mind control, that one is able to basically transcend the dualities that are there to the body. Higher than that is the control of the subtle aspects of the mind, which is the duality of happiness and distress. That if one is able to be the same, whether the situations are something that is conducive to happiness or to distress. If one is the same in honor or dishonor. If one is the same when they are situated with favorable people or with unfavorable people. So that goes to the next level of mind control. So here he talks about both of them. Happiness and distress, they are subtle. Honor and dishonor, they are subtle. Heat and cold, they are more gross. So Krishna is telling Arjuna that how can you understand the symptoms of one who has mind control, understanding the control of the mind is difficult because you are using the mind to understand the mind. It's a little difficult, right? The mind can trick you. The mind can say, Prabhu, you have total control on me. Whereas actually the mind is controlling you completely. So Krishna is giving Arjuna some symptoms through which you can see that how do I feel in happiness and distress? Do I feel the same? Acha, good. I have some level of mind control. How do I feel if the metro is on time or it is late? Do I feel the same? Acha, it is good. If not, then still you have to do some work. Next verse. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by the virtue of acquired knowledge and realizations. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebble, stone or gold, as the same. So, for the symptoms of one who has attained a higher stage of mind control, that the person is fully satisfied by virtue of. So Krishna talks about two things, Gyan, Vigyan, Triptatma. So he talks about knowledge and realizations. So now we see how Krishna is weaving in the concepts that he had given to Arjun earlier on. So when did Krishna first speak about Gyan Vigyan? You remember he spoke about first in the 5th chapter, right? Third chapter, in the 4th chapter he talked about Gyan, and in the 5th chapter he speaks about Vigyan. And the difference between Gyan and Vigyan is Gyan is information, knowledge.
Vigyan is acting with the help of that knowledge.
Vigyan is realizations, is acting based. So I know that I am not my body, but I am a spirit soul, that is Gyan. If I start acting on that platform, that I am actually not the body, especially if you talk to anybody in India, 99.9% of the people will with full sincerity conform to the notion, I am not the body, I am the soul, because it is part of the DNA. They're born with that knowledge. I am not the body, I am the soul. But acting on that realization is a different thing. Because when one acts on the platform of body, then everything connected with the body becomes important to you. Things like honor, dishonor, happiness, distress, fame, infamy, this is all just related to your body. Right? So even though we may know that we are not the body, we are not able to act on that platform. So here Krishna is saying Gyan Vigyana Triptatma, that one who has not only understood but has also realized that knowledge is satisfied by the virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. So he says such a person has already reached transcendence. Now, strictly speaking, such a person has not reached transcendence yet, because the process has just begun. But Krishna is saying he has already reached transcendence because it's just a matter of time. It's like if a child is intelligent and he gets admitted to a good school, then people will start saying that okay, he's an engineer or he's a doctor, even though the person may not yet be an engineer or a doctor, because they have faith that the person has all the qualifications and the process is bona fide. So based on that faith, Krishna is saying that he has already reached transcendence. It's just a matter of time. Now again, time is something that Krishna has a different conception and we have a different conception. So later on he'll say that what is the definition of that time? He says could be millions of lifetimes there. For us, time is abhi. I need to have spiritual transcendence right now. You know, as when I was working in Jamshedpur, we used to have one of the managers over there. He was related to the Tatas. He used to have these sessions called, at that time I think they were called quiet time sessions, right? And so some of us used to go. I used to go there, and I used to always, they were like 30-minute sessions, and then after the 30-minute session, it was something, just some kind of meditation. And after the 30-minute session, I would go and ask him that what difference should I feel in myself? And then he said, you have just done 30 minutes, what difference can you see in yourself? And I said, will I see it the next time I come? And he said, you may or you may not, but the important thing is you keep doing it. And I kind of lost interest in it sometime. But that's our nature. We need, for everything that we know, we need gratification right away. But Krishna is saying that if these qualifications are there, then the person will inevitably reach the position of transcendental realization. That is Krishna's assurance that he is giving. Verse 9. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with the equal mind. So this is a person at the Yoga Rudha stage, at a more advanced stage. So it is easier for one to develop equanimity with respect to the material aspects of one's existence. It is more difficult for one to to develop that equanimity when it comes to relationships with others. Because when it comes to relationships, then they go to the more finer aspects of your existence. Do you know the one thing that is most difficult for us? This one thing that is considered to be the most difficult for conditioned souls.
Humility.
In terms of relationships. The one thing that is considered to be most difficult is to be happy in other people's happiness. That is considered to be the most difficult. It is relatively easy to be sad when another person is sad. But it is very difficult to be really happy. And why is that? Because that goes to the root of our existence. Why have we come down to this material world? Because of envy. And that, because of envy. And that is the quality that makes us difficult to rejoice with the happiness of others. And that is why Krishna says that, that he talks about the various grades of relationships. That envious, neutral, mediators, friends, enemies, pious, and sinners. Being neutral to all of them means that you're actually neutral, you have actually transcended the modes of material nature. That is one thing. Second thing is, how can you be actually neutral to all these kinds of people? What is the only one way that you can be neutral to all these kinds of people? When you see all of them in relationship to Krishna. Right? That's the only way that you can be neutral to all of them. How can you not be angry at somebody who is trying to harm you? When you understand that actually that person is not really harming you, but you are being harmed because of your own karma. So when you understand when you see the hand of Krishna everywhere, then that particular focus that we have towards the perpetrator automatically goes away. So when Ravan killed Maharaj, what's his name? I forget his name, but he's an ancestor of Lord Ram. And Ravan, he was once going he was flying in his Pushpak Viman, and he saw the kingdom of Maharaj Anaranya. He saw this kingdom of Maharaj Anaranya, very, very opulent, and Ravan grew envious, and he attacked the kingdom. Even though generally he didn't want anything to do with humans, but he just grew envious, and he attacked the kingdom, and Maharaj Anaranya came to fight with him. And after a battle, Ravan mortally wounded him. And the king was lying on the ground, dying, and Ravan came and he just sat by him to watch him die. And Maharaj Anaranya saw that Ravan was smiling, and then he said that you should not smile, because you are considering yourself to be the cause of my death, but actually I am the cause of my death. The reason that I am dying is because of activities that I did in my past life. So I bear you no malice, and I bear you no ill will. And then Ravan felt so small at the time. And of course he was a demon, so he lost that realization. But just this understanding that everybody is forced to act according to the modes of material nature, and everything that is happening around us is only because of us. Because of the past and present pious and sinful activities that I've done, that itself will liberate us. It will give us the conception of samdrishti. Questions, comments? Bindu?
Prabhu, from the verse 8 and 9, like Lord Krishna talks about the mind being very neutral, but from a practical perspective, the mind always overtakes us. So, where, like, as a devotee, you start chanting and then you start associating things, everything from persons to things to Krishna, but still there is always a constant battle between
between you and the mind. And 99% of the time, it's always the mind that overtakes you. So, like, how, on a, like for a practicing devotee, how do we really say that, hey, that we have made a progress? But then also, in a devotee's life, there are ups and downs. But then you go down, and then again, the person thinks, okay, fine, I have a control of the mind. Now I know. But then again, when you go back to the circle of life, it just, you know, you automatically come back to where you started. So it's like, you know, this is the way I look at it. I find it really not practical for one to control mind.
Yeah, it's a good point. Very, you know, from a practical perspective. So I have, I guess, two realizations to share, and then I can see if you know, other people. So one is, so I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of hysteresis, that if you stretch a metal and then you leave it, if it is elastic, it will go back to its original point, right? But it doesn't go back exactly to its original point. It's 1 micron longer. And then you stretch it again, it goes back to the original point, but it is 2 microns longer, right? So that's the influence of abhyas. That even though we don't see it, every time we fight a battle with the mind and we are defeated by the mind, it takes a little longer for the mind to defeat us. And it may be a second or a microsecond or maybe an hour, but every time it is a little bit more difficult for the mind to do it. So one most important thing is abhyas, that we do it over and over and over again. So like if you invest in a mutual fund, they say that past performance is no guarantee of future success. So in this case, past failures are no guarantee of future failures. So in fact, past failures are guarantees of future success. So the glory that we have is in trying. We know that the mind will always defeat us. So we don't even try to defeat the mind. But the glory that we have is trying. Prabhupada, in the purport, he has an example. He shares a pastime of Garud and the sparrow. I don't know. Have you heard of the pastime of the sparrow and Garud? So there was a sparrow that had laid its eggs on the banks of an ocean. And one day it had gone by looking for stuff, and the ocean took the eggs. So when the sparrow came back, it saw that its eggs had gone. So it got upset at the ocean, and he said, "You give my eggs back." And the ocean said, "Take a walk, go away." And the sparrow said, "If you don't give my eggs back, I'll get really upset." So the ocean said, "What you going to do? Just go away." So the sparrow said, "Guess what? I'm going to empty you." So the ocean started laughing. The ocean is wild. So the sparrow, it had a small beak. It took a little bit of water, took it out, took a little bit of water, took it out. And then not only was the ocean laughing, but everybody around was laughing. That, look at this stupid bird. But the sparrow, day and night, it was taking 1 drop of water, 1 drop of water. And then the news of the sparrow reached Garud. So Garud is the original bird, so to speak. So then Garud came down, and he told the ocean, "You return the eggs for the sparrow, otherwise I will empty you." Now while the sparrow could not empty the ocean, Garud could empty the ocean. So the ocean quickly gave the eggs back to the sparrow. So that is how we fight the mind. The glory that we have in fighting the mind is our endeavor. But ultimately, it's Krishna who will come and help us. The mind may be more powerful than us, but Krishna is more powerful than the mind. But unless we go through that endeavor, how can we demonstrate our sincerity? We can just sit around allowing the mind to pull us in all directions and say, "Krishna, take care of it." Right? That's mode of ignorance. That we are just sitting like this, or worse, we are letting the mind take us wherever it wants us to take, in sinful activities and in all kind of karmic things, and we're saying Krishna will take care of it. Krishna will not take care of it. But when Krishna sees, when he sees this sincere lamentation on our end, that today I again try to control my mind, and I got defeated again, tomorrow I'll try a little harder. When he sees the small drops that we're trying to take away from the ocean, then Krishna comes, and then he helps us. So our approach is a little bit of effort, but a lot of expectation of mercy. Yeah.
The second realization, I have, you said two realizations you will share. One is abhyas.
So one is abhyas, and the second is vairagya.
Why?
So the vairagya is basically what we try and do. Right? We say that our mind is saying that engage over here. Right? So we say that not today. Right? Or maybe not to the full extent. Right? So we develop certain level of detachment from that. And we do that over and over again. Every day, every moment. So by this combination of abhyas and vairagya, we attract the mercy of Krishna. You had a question, Avinash?
You said a few minutes ago that the hardest thing in life is to be happy when other persons are happy. Okay? But I can give you some examples where it's not true. For example, a child does well, the parents are very happy. They're more happy than the child itself, you know. Or the spouse, the wife is more happy when the husband does well in something like that. Or, for example, in this group, if anyone does well, we are happy. You know. So it's a question of how much we are attached there. It may be true in case it's a stranger, you know, but it's not true in all cases. No?
Yes and no. I think the relationship of a parents with a child, so this is a point that I made earlier on, that the closest reflection of a spiritual relationship in this material world is that between the parent and a child. But it's not an indication of a typical relationship. So just by saying that a parent is happy when the child is happy, and extrapolating that to say that they will be happy for the happiness of others, is probably not a very it's not a very linear extrapolation. The relationship that the parents have with the child is unique in many ways. As far as spouse is concerned, it depends on the spouse. Right? Some spouses are happy, some are not, some are, So, Pyali?
We had a question before we get to what else?
Anirudh?
Maybe I will understand this in the future part. The goal of the slow of common mind is to treat everybody in equal. Then in the future, Krishna says Arjun kill somebody to kill and somebody to, for example, his brothers to be well with them and kill his opponents, even his teachers and his cousins and all. So there, like he's telling to treat somebody in other ways and somebody. So I know it's in the future to be a problem.
Good question. It is answered in subsequent verses, but since you've asked the question, I'll try and address a little bit. Did everybody hear the question?
No.
So Anirudh was asking the question that if Krishna is saying that the mind should treat everybody equally, then later on he will ask Arjun to kill Duryodhana and kill the Kauravas and protect his own people. So where is the equality that Krishna is talking about at the time? Arjun could say that I don't see any friend and enemy over here. So I'm the same to everyone. So one must understand what is the nature of the equality. So equality is how it affects you. Now not how you interact with them. So equality is the example is that when Arjun lost Abhimanyu, he felt distress because of it, but he did not let that affect him. So he continued to fight the battle because he understood that was, depending on the level of realization that you subscribe to him, either he understood that it was his duty, or he understood that was Krishna's instruction. So he did not fight Duryodhan because he hated Duryodhan or because he had personal enmity to Duryodhan. He fought with Duryodhan because it was his duty to fight, and if you look at it from the bhakti perspective, because Krishna had asked him to fight. So equality is how it affects you, not how you interact with others. There's an example of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He once went into a house and there was a snake over there. And then he said that you remove the snake right away from the room. And then somebody said, you're a sadhu. Why are you envious to the snake? And he said, I'm not envious to the snake. The snake is envious to me. I'm acknowledging the position of the snake. So the difference is that one person may look at the snake and say that this snake will bite me, this snake could do, and then purposefully hunt down the snake. But it also means that you understand the nature of the other person. But the catalyst to your activities is not because of the discrimination that you do. The catalyst to the activity is based on your understanding of the position of the other person. Yeah, that helps. There was somebody else, or Dhyana?
Yeah, for a conditioned soul, is it even possible to have samdrish?
It's a good question. For a conditioned soul, is it possible to have samdrishti? So all these things are things that are basically developed in stages. Right. So ultimate stage of samdrishti comes later on, is seeing everybody as Vasudeva Kutumba, seeing everybody as belonging to the same family. Right. So Avinash was making this proposition that you are very favorable to people in your own family. Right. You see everybody belonging to the family of Krishna, you automatically become favorable to everybody. That is one stage of samadrishti, which is difficult to achieve. But there are other stages of samadrishti. Not hating the hater. That is a stage of samadrishti. Not becoming agitated by trials and tribulations. That is samadrishti. Your samadrishti is towards not people, but towards circumstances. That is a lower level of samadrishti, but that is samadrishti. So as we make progress, we see different levels of equanimity manifesting in ourselves. And you're right, ultimately, real equanimity comes in when, Krishna says later on, when you come in contact with Krishna's Chit Shakti. Because Krishna by nature, he has equanimity. When you come in contact with Krishna's Chit Shakti, you inherit that equanimity from him. Not really from your endeavor per se, but because of your proximity to Krishna. Yeah? Anything else? Okay. So we had done the 9th verse, right? So we had done the 10th verse, okay. So we'll do verse 11 to 12.
Finished 9.
We had done the 9th, sorry. We'll do the 10th verse. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So, Krishna is talking about what are the kinds of prerequisites that one should try and cultivate before they start the process of Astan Yoga. So he talks about he should engage his body, mind and self. So 3 levels, we all exist in these 3 planes: gross, subtle and spiritual. So all 3 planes are engaged. So body is engaged. So through the body we are serving Krishna. Mind is engaged, either through thoughts or through control. And self is the soul. The soul is engaged. So one should aspire to engage all 3 aspects in the service of Krishna and live in a secluded place. Because the nature of a yogi is that they need seclusion to practice. So one should aspire to live in a secluded place to follow the process of Astanga. 11-12. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses and activities and fixing the mind on one point. So this is Yoga Ruruksha. This is earlier the preparatory stages of yoga. So Krishna is giving various practical tips that one should lay kusha grass. So kusha grass, as you know, is considered to be very favorable for any spiritual activities. There are different Puranic pastimes that glorify the position of kusha grass. That any yajna that is done, the priest will have a ring, and there will be kusha grass that is attached to that. The mats that are satin on for mantras, etc., are made of kusha grass. And Krishna is saying that you put kusha grass on that, you cover it with deer skin. So deer skin is recommended because by nature it repels snakes and scorpions and spiders and animals like that. So, especially in the initial stages, you don't want to be stung while you're doing like yoga. So snake bites you or spider bites you. So the deer skin is something that naturally repels these creatures. So he's saying cover it with deer skin and cover it with a soft cloth. So it's interesting that Krishna is creating an environment of transition. So he's not going and saying that sit on a hard rock and in between fierce jungle animals, but he's creating an environment that can help one go to subsequent stages. He says the place should neither be too low nor too high. So if the place is too low, it gets flooded easily. If the place is too high, then the person gets a sense of pride. That sometimes you see like pictures, there's a person sitting at the top of a mountain like this, and then and you can imagine yourself sitting like that and looking down at the rest of the world, at these poor creatures, and here I am. So he's trying to say that not too high and not so low also that the first time it rains it floods, and not too low that you're artificially feeling very humble that I am so low. And be situated in a sacred place. So sacred places, because sacred places have positive vibes. So typically a sacred place is considered to be on the banks of a river or in a forest, but place is really considered sacred because of the association of other saintly minded people. So so one should basically take a place where there is that environment over there is conducive for yourself and because of the association of similar minded people. And then he says one should sit firmly. So this is Krishna's first glimpse into the fact that the process of Astanga Yoga requires a lot of firm determination because of 2 reasons. It is difficult and it is long. So he says that sit firmly. You'll be sitting there for a few thousand years. So sit firmly over there. One should hold one's body, neck and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Then, thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear and completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal. So, you see now Krishna is talking about the yoga part of Astanga yoga. So what do? You are sitting in a place, you have a deer skin, you have your cloth, you have your kusha grass, and your asana is good, your mind is unagitated, you are celibate. So what do you do with all that? And Krishna is saying that now you meditate on me. So, and this is important in every practice that we do. That when we develop detachment, so detachment means giving up something. But whenever we are giving up something, it is a nature to seek a way to replace it. So Krishna says that now that you are ready to give up all your material attachment, make me the center of your spiritual attachment.
I have a question which is probably not related to this. Deer skin concept, it's kind of doesn't sit well with the whole theme, right? Because you're using, you're causing harm to be able to get a deer skin, which is prescribed to be used to practice your yoga.
Oh, you don't have to kill a deer skin, right? There are a lot of deer that die naturally.
And then you pick off the skin?
If you pick off the skin, yeah, you don't have to kill them. Any other question about deers? Or if you come on this road in the morning, there's always a deer dead. So if anytime you're interested in Astanga yoga, pick a deer from Yeah. So many, I feel sad for them. So many deer, especially small deer, they're dying.
It is actually for not to be disturbed from external things. Is it not? Not to be disturbed from external affairs, from external feelings.
Yes.
That is why the place is made in that way.
Yeah. I mean, not to be disturbed, true. But the point Pyali is making is valid. Not to be disturbed doesn't mean that you kill the deer and say I'm not disturbed by it, right? It also means that killing another living creature is a sinful activity. Right? You can't engage in a sinful activity to perform a pious activity. That's the mode of ignorance. So you can't really do it in a clear conscience.
So Prabhuji, what about yoga mat?
It's made of kusha grass, right?
The green one
It's a
that
big
he's
business,
talking about.
$1 billion business.
Only the green ones are made of kusha grass.
Yeah.
It is starting point.
So your point is grass is being killed for that? There's always, yeah.
What is the significance of while doing yoga, staying and concentrating on?
Say that again?
What is the significance of being erect and focusing on the tip of your nose?
Tip of the nose. So Krishna over here is giving very, very brief glimpses into the process of yoga. He doesn't go in details. But sitting straight is basically understood to be the process of aligning the chakras. So we had spoken a little bit about pranayama, how the energy in the body works. It said that when the chakras are aligned, the energy of the body moves more with lesser impediment. And focusing on the nose is the point. So if you focus on your nose, your eyes are half open and half closed. So the recommendation is if you close your eyes, you'll fall asleep. If you open your eyes, then you'll get distracted by things around you. There is a bird sitting on a tree, or there is a rabbit going there. But focusing on the nose means that your eyes are not closed and they're not open also. So they're kind of in an area that's, you don't sleep, but you don't get distracted also. So there are many such angas of Astanga that are, initially they're very, very physical, very, very instructive. Do this, join your fingers like this, and you just do it. But everything has a certain way to help you towards the ultimate goal. Right? You may not see it right away, but eventually it does. Yeah?
Prabhu, I have a question.
Mhm.
Prabhu, this is for the whole chapter as such, where the Lord Krishna has instructed about the yoga process versus even before explaining the opulence of himself. So, I mean, how does, does Krishna, how does Prabhupada put it that, okay, there is a lot of difficult process and you have to go through this process because I am absolute. It's a little, how does
Yeah, it's a good question. So, the question is that Krishna hasn't really spoken about his own opulences, but he is recommending the part of Asthang, which is a very difficult process to go. So one would engage in the process if one is convinced about the opulence of Krishna. So one looks at the destination and says, wow, this is Krishna. Then it makes sense to go through all the different austerities that are concomitant with that. So beginning from the 4th chapter, Krishna has been speaking about himself. Right from the fourth chapter, Krishna says, Janma karma chame devyam yome veti tatpataha takta deham punar janmam neti mameti. So Arjuna, he talks about the divinity of his birth and his pastimes. And 5th chapter again, he says that in full meditation of me, give up your lethargy and fight. He hasn't spoken about himself in a very systematic way. He has given glimpses of himself to Arjun. Beginning from the 7th chapter, Krishna will systematically speak about himself. He's putting 6th chapter over here because he really does not expect Arjun to take to the process of Ashtanga Yoga. He does not, because remember the Gita was spoken at the beginning of Kali Yuga. Right? Dwapar Yuga was ending and Kali Yuga was beginning at the time. So even for the people in Satya Yuga, Ashtanga Yoga was a very difficult process to do. So he doesn't really expect Arjun to take to the process of Ashtanga Yoga. If he would have spoken very elaborately like Patanjali does about Paramatma. Because Ashtanga Yoga is all about Paramatma realization. So in one of the discussions we had, we spent the whole hour simply talking about the Paramatma form of Krishna. So one needs to develop that attachment. Krishna has spoken just few verses. When he spoke about Samdrishti, he spoke a few verses about Paramatma, but not very elaborately. But in Patanjali Sutra, the Paramatma is described very exquisitively. The beauty of the Paramatma, how to meditate, beginning from the lotus feet to the waist to the chest and the face. So it is developed in order to place this goal, this end result for a practitioner, that the person then says, okay, this is what I am going for. But Krishna has put Ashtanga Yoga here for the sake of completeness, right? Just like Karma Yoga also, beginning from the 3rd chapter, Krishna has spoken about karma very briefly. We considering the fact that 94% of the scriptures talk about karma, Krishna does not talk about karma at all, right? Because he does not want Arjun to take to karma, but he has spoken for the sake of completeness. That how do you understand the 94% of the Vedas that are talking about karma? This is the relationship with it. When you come to the 12th chapter, then Krishna will explain why he talked about all this. Arjun will say that, were you trying to confuse me? He doesn't say explicitly, but Arjun will say that, are you trying to confuse me? You talked about karma, then you talked about jnana, then you talked about Ashtanga Yoga, now you're talking about bhakti. What's going on, Krishna? And then Krishna then explains why did he speak about all these paths.
A personal part, this is just with me. I like the first chapter, and then the 4th, 5th, 6th, it's something like it's way too off, and then you go to the 9th, and then you come back to episode 4 and 6. Is it okay to read that way, or is it? I mean, this is what I have done.
It's okay. Prabhupada would describe Bhagavad Gita as a mango. You take a bite from anywhere, it's sweet. So there are some people who only read the 12th chapter, pure devotional service. There are people who memorize the 12th chapter, they recite every day. They just read the 12th chapter. The people who read the last 6 chapters, modes of material nature. So everything Krishna has put there will ultimately help us there. Depending on our propensity, depending on where we are, we develop a certain attraction to certain chapters, develop a certain attraction to certain verses. We like some verses, they're really beautiful. And we are running out of time also. So,
Do you have time for that?
Yeah.
So, given the setting of where this is spoken, where Gita is spoken, why didn't Krishna just get to the point? When Arjun said, I don't want to fight, I don't want to kill man, he just, he said a lot of different things, a lot of different philosophies for the sake of completeness. I get that, but why didn't he just get to the point and say, hey, this is the reason you will fight, or you should fight?
He did. You see, you remember... You remember there are 9 times in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna tells Arjun, get up and fight. Right, beginning from the 2nd chapter onwards. 9 times Krishna asks Arjun to fight, Arjun ignores Krishna. He'll ask something else. When Krishna says get up and fight, Arjun is like, he's polishing his sword, he ignores Krishna at the time. That's what we also do, right? Krishna comes to us and says, just perform devotional service. And then you say, but what about my mind? It has all these desires in them. And then Krishna says, just do bhakti. And then we'll say that, who are you? Why should we perform bhakti? So, while bhakti, the process itself is strong enough that it can elevate us from any point that we are there. But more often than not, we need help. We need help from karma, we need help from jnana, we need help from astang. So these are all subsidiary processes that help us follow the process of bhakti. But your question is very valid because of the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada, we take to the process of bhakti directly. So it's in our nature that we see a lot of the other processes to be superfluous. Krishna could have spoken all the 700 verses about bhakti and we would have liked the Bhagavad Gita much more. But Krishna did not speak the Bhagavad Gita just for us. He spoke the Bhagavad Gita for people who take to the process, who read the 3rd chapter, the 4th chapter, the 5th chapter, and say that what Krishna is asking me to do is to do pious activities. So they stop doing sinful activities and they start performing pious activities. Or they may read the 13th to 17th chapter and Krishna explains the modes of material nature and the people have said, okay, now I understand why my mind is so agitated all the time. Now I understand what are the processes that I can use to control my mind, and they do that. And from that, they make gradual elevation. So, just like the Vedas, in the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna casts a wide net. Depending on whichever position a person is, there is something for the person to engage with. And that's one reason why the Bhagavad Gita is one of the most read pieces of literature in the world. That even people who read it without any background of Hinduism, without any understanding of the Vedas, even they find something to engage them. Because it takes one from wherever level that they are. Whether they are vikarmis, karmis, akarmis or bhaktas, it will take them from whatever level they are and give them something to think about. Yeah. So we'll stop here at the 14th chapter. So we can have the children come up and... Okay. You want to stop this, Parikshit?
Sure.